This is supposed to be an informal chat. It's not a technical session where we are going to ask very specific technical questions. But generally, we would like to know more about how the journey of Shirish Patel and Associates, where Vasu joined them in, sorry, I'm calling you Vasu.
Yeah, that's fine, absolutely.
Yeah, because whenever I call him Dr. Noori, he objects to it. Whenever I phone him, he says, call me Vasu. Probably this is American influence, I think. So we have been, as young engineers, when I joined my father, we were great admirers of Shirish Patel and Associates and, of course, your work. Because of my partner Sudhu Prabhu, I had also met you and got in touch with you occasionally. So we were all amazed and inspired by your work in those days because very few people ventured to do flat slab construction. Now today you will laugh at this, but I remember Shivasagar Estates was a much talked about project in Worli where you had used flat slab as a design, and it was a flat slab with a tapering chhaja. Thickness was some 3 inches. And some of the architects actually asked me, why don't you go and find out from Mr. Shirish Patel how he can do a flat slab in 3-inch thickness? So I had to explain to them that this is a tapering chhaja. But what we noticed was all their work was very innovative, very attractive, very functional. And when we as other engineers were following the practice of structural steel, end girders and trusses and covered with steel purlins and asbestos sheets, Shirish Patel and Associates came up with very beautiful designs in concrete, and particularly precast concrete was amazing. Many precast products came from their office for the first time. And there are many innovations. One I'm really proud to say is Kanchanjunga building on Pedder Road, where the core was slip-formed. And we used to wonder what is coming up in this square box from while going on the street. Not many buildings came up with slip-formed construction thereafter. Do you, Vasu, can you tell us why this was not copied by many people?
No. Let me say a few things, first of all. To begin with, I'm very fortunate. I must say I'm very, very fortunate throughout my entire life to have come across excellent engineers, excellent human beings, and very ethical persons who have inspired me and who still continue to inspire me. And other thing I would like to say, any civil engineering construction is a close collaboration between the client, the designer, the contractor, maybe the subcontractor, and so on. So I think I've received the award, but really this award has to be shared by so many people who have collaborated with us, who place their trust in us, and our clients, and especially Shirish, was constantly encouraged to innovate, because he said that, every time you do, you can do something better. And we kept on going like that. We have been fortunate. God has been very kind. There have been ups and downs, but somehow we have survived with all that, And, Shirish was very, very particular of one thing I must tell you, is that, in fact, there was a particular building which the client wanted us to design for us. But Shirish was not happy with that because it was against the rules of development of that particular plot. So I had some arguments with him at that time, very honestly, I must tell you. He says, look, you are a structural engineer, that's okay. But you should not do anything knowing that it will cause harm to the city. That's very important. So everything we do, we must also consider the society in which we live. If we are contributing negatively to the society, we should not do it. And I think I'm talking too much. Would you like to stop me? I would like to say just one more thing. My relationship with Shirish. You know, there was once it happened that we had a very serious argument. And I told Shirish, look, I can't work like this anymore. And I walked out of the room. And then after some time, I went back. You know, it was not about commercial things. It was his idea. He wanted me to look at the problem differently. And both of us had a common goal to give the best for the client. Once we understood that, it's not a question of who is right or who is wrong, you know. And for that, I mean, that's how our relationship has been. Thank you.
Would you like to say something, or shall I just continue with one other question? You know, Shirish Patel and Associates were very popular amongst prestigious clients also. And they have worked with very good architects across the country, all over. And in fact, their buildings are so different. Sometimes I feel that the design is, even architectural design, is dictated by Shirish. Sometimes I get that feeling. Did you have any conflicts with the architects who you were working with? Because sometimes architects are very adamant about their views, and it is a structural engineer who tries to put some sense in their design, and there are arguments. So did you experience anything like that in your career, or you were able to persuade them sweetly?
No, we believe that we must respect every profession.
Yeah.
And architect has certain ideas, and we must respect his ideas. Actually, talking of Kanchenjunga apartments, you know, as engineers, we don't like cantilevers. They always deflect downwards. So when he had these huge cantilevers, and I asked Charles, I said, Charles, why can't you give me a column in the corner? And then he said, look, Nori, okay, tell me how much it would save the cost. And that had me thinking. In fact, it didn't. In fact, we saved the cost and also the building because all the loads were carried by the shear walls, and this column had nothing to do with it. So it's a great learning experience, you know. I mean, actually, very recently, I think they have not shown any slides, they have done some very huge steel bridges. I think the largest of them was in Nagpur. It's 80-meter long steel double-decker bridge carrying 2 tracks on the upper level and carrying 4 vehicular traffic at the lower level. It is a very, very tight schedule, and it's probably the largest of its kind in India, and it was recently inaugurated and so on. So, you know, it's a matter of opportunities. Thank you, sir. No, it's a matter of opportunities. When there's an opportunity, we try to seize it and see what best we can do. And we're grateful to our clients for giving us these opportunities. We have done some other bridges in very, very difficult situations, crossing of the railway tracks. They have done by incremental launching. And, I mean, it's a matter of, if we don't have opportunities, there's nothing that we can do. So we owe it to the client who places his trust in us, and the trust which the clients place on us is our burden actually, because we are taking a lot of responsibility, and he has put his faith in us, and we must deliver. Thank you.
You have also designed very tall buildings using precast. Precast is your very specialized field in which you have studied all the joints, the movement and everything. And on Nepean Sea Road, the building which came up, did you actually participate in the design of that? Because there we were amazed to see that even the internal walls, external walls, floor plates, everything was precast, ensuring perfect, quality. And we were also very much, full of pride that in India now we are seeing these multi-storied buildings using precast panels, as we used to see in England or Europe. But why is it, what is it that is holding us up? Is what I would like to know from Shirish, from Dr. Nouri, that what is holding us up from using precast concrete technology in tall buildings, as well as even in mass housing. We have huge requirement of mass housing. All over the country, we want to build so many lakhs of apartments, small apartments. Precasting, everybody agrees that precast housing technology, precast concrete technology will be the right answer to ensure quality. What is it that is holding us up? I mean, there must be some good reasons which perhaps you will be able to tell us.
I must tell you, I was not part of that building project, and yet I must tell you why this was done. Neither us, neither Shirish or Shirish Shah of Shah Construction had any idea of precasting. So why precasting? Because you can save. You can use new forms. You can save steel and concrete both. Now, this has been very popular, for example, in all East European countries. So what they did is visited some of these countries, including Russia, and also France and UK, and had got some feeling of about these structures and what we should be doing. Now, so what happened was that we decided that we should do a mock-up, because we are still learning, how to get concrete in a hollow slab, how to make them, what are battery molds, how do you tilt them without breaking, and so on. So a lot of experimenting was going on. Then we said, look, before we construct any such tall building, you must do a full-scale mock-up. And that was possible, luckily, at Andheri. So we built a 3-storied mock-up with the same kind of tools and so on, same molds and so on. And we load tested it. In fact, we had invited IIT from IIT Bombay to participate in the load testing. What we had done was induce the vertical load of all the upper stories by using external pre-stressing cables. And what about the horizontal loads? Same thing that we had done. We had induced a horizontal tie, counterbalance and so on. So it will represent the same overturning movement that would occur. So we are not very sure the joints, whether they will be able to transfer the shear in between them, because you're casting individual panels. And so the test was quite satisfactory. In fact, it gave us a lot of confidence. I said, looking at the workmanship and all that, we were not at all happy. And still it worked well. So that gave us confidence. Now, and we have done some more precast buildings in Andheri and so on. To answer the specific question which Kamal has raised, which is very important, you know, we need to do mass housing. Now, the private contractors, they don't have land with them. Government has all the land, and they could actually, you know, they have all the land. So they could get into this mass housing problem. Then we could have had this mass housing which was affordable. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Government was there, they have the land, they have the resources. Because, you see, we could never achieve the speed of construction if we wanted to in Petit Hall, for example. You could do 1 floor in 7 days, but often we had to wait for steel or cement or something like that. So the real solution was the public sector to take over and build such buildings. Thank you, Kamal.
You can keep them. I think I would also like to ask Dr. Raju about his experience with structural steel or sheet metal in particular. Kirby's are the leaders. I mean, they have been leaders since what I think 70s. In Kuwait they started, and we used a lot of Kirby designs in our buildings also. I would like to know whether you are looking at mass production of affordable housing by Kirby, because you have already earned the trust, you already have the machinery, you have the know-how, and if you come up with a catalog saying that these are the 6 designs or 4 designs that we want to offer, and this is the price. Everything below the plinth has to be built by the contractor, and above the plinth, you come and do as a very quick job. I'm sure you have the know-how, you have the machinery and everything, and you can design it for any season, practically. I mean, you can design it for earthquake, wind, and very heavy rains and whatnot, thermal expansion, contraction, you know it all. So is it difficult to venture into that? Because you may be able to take a huge chunk of the market share. Even in Mumbai, like Dharavi, for instance, if you come up with a design which can be repeated, your costs will come down, is what I thought. Is that a correct thinking, or is not possible in Kirby's?
No, it's surely possible, what you said about the mass housing in steel construction with a modular construction. But I must say that this hasn't gained that popularity of acceptance here. But I have seen abroad, like they call it as a light gauge steel framing, LGSF, wherein by just using the cold form sections of a pre-galvanized of about 1.25 to 1.6 to maximum 2 mm thickness, the framing is also done at the site in a mass housing society and executed. So we have in Kirby and in my previous company also, we have done, for example, when the unfortunate earthquake came in Gujarat, that time a lot of housing and immediate emergency relief measures of hospitals or the health clinics and housing schools, etc. were done. Close to about 1,000 buildings kind of a thing we have done in 2001 when that earthquake came. But that was all using the light gauge. But when it came to residences also we have done from Kirby. But it didn't gain that acceptance because these residences of a mass housing was going for the poor families who are not very habituated using some panels like that. You know, they wanted to put their clothes hanging, this one hanging to a brick wall. So something like a combination of a civil brick work structure with a light gauge framing on the top probably could be the requirement for our Indian conditions in the beginning, but we started doing for, let's say that we were known only for industrial buildings or warehouses or factory buildings. But that particular thing came up for, there was no acceptance in India even for high-rise buildings, office buildings. It used to be always concrete. With the advent of composite construction of using steel and concrete together, I think we have already ventured into that, and many other companies have come in offering that. It has ventured even into a combination of cold form sections as well as the built-up sections. We have done some mass housing of a high-rise buildings in somewhere near to Himachal Pradesh like that. But it needs to gain popularity with the consultants, specifying that, and together as a stakeholders, with consultants like you and us, we can definitely bring that. But for mass housing, it has to be something like LGSF, light gauge steel framing, and which is in the thought. We are doing few in Middle East because that acceptance is there. Once it comes here, we'll be able to bring that technology as well, sir.
Perhaps working together with structural designers and architects and municipal...
And also the authorities.
Yeah, and authorities. A happy solution can be found. And perhaps what you say is true, that people in villages, they will not accept something which is looking flimsy. But if it is a external skin is gear-based, internally also there is a membrane. And if we pour something like lightweight concrete or even PU foam or something like that to give an appearance of a wall, and if it can take the load of screws and fittings and fixtures, etc., a happy solution can be found, because you can produce doors, windows, everything.
Huge requirement.
On a big scale, and nobody will be able to beat you in price, is what I guess.
Sure.
We'll look forward to working with you.
Sure, sir.
Vasu, we will come to you for your blessings. Yes, please, go ahead.
You know, one of our problems in our country is something to do with codes of practice. Yes. You know, they always say that, but where is the code of practice for this, what you're doing? And I always tell them, you know, innovations come first and codes of practice will come afterwards. And this is a big fight that is going on, including in now precast concrete buildings. Somebody has decided for ordinary residential buildings, the wall must be 175 millimeters thick or something like that, which is ridiculous. A fire can, I mean, after all, a fire is caused by what is there inside, the occupants or whatever it is. And it cannot pull the whole building down. And there are also ways of safeguarding against collapse and so on. In fact, way back, I mean, one of the Cast Institute buildings we did, we had the walls on the upper floors just 4 or 5 inches thick. That's all there is to it. And they're still there. There is no problem. And unfortunately, we are not doing enough research in this direction or testing. I think there is a lot to learn from France, for example. They encourage the contractors to come with innovative solutions and support them. For example, bridges with corrugated webs. When I first saw it, I could not believe it. How could you corrugate a web which is basically taking shear? Yeah. It is possible because you reduce the suddenness basically without building stiffness and so on. So the government and the contractor work together and bring in innovations. And there's been a lot of innovation in China also. The kind of steel structures they were doing with huge arches where the tubes are used for erection, then they infilled with concrete. There is so much to learn, but I think, sadly enough, nobody is interested in innovating today. Absolutely no one, and that is a very sad state of affairs. I'm sorry to say this.
You're right, Vasu. I don't know whether we have time for, where is Avni? do we have time for more questions? Anybody wanting to know something from Dr. Nouri and Dr. Raju? Would you like to add something to whatever has been discussed? Because I have one last question reserved for Vasu.
I think primarily I feel that steel usage in India is increasing for the last about 8 years. If you see the per capita consumption, it is something like about 78, 80 kg today versus world's average of around 240 kg. So that kind of a thing we are, and with an association like all the stakeholders, like all of us, like steel manufacturers and steel application engineers, like manufacturers like us, and the consultants and contractors in the government authorities, if we can work together, I'm sure that huge potential for the steel usage in India is there. And also codes of practices, like what we see in America. The codes regularly get updated with the latest technology or latest advances that are happening. Is not happening. For example, if I take it, IS 800 code, it was 1984, and then came something like about 2006 and whatnot, until from that, virtually there is no change at all. We are still practicing such kind of a codes. I think if we all work together, along with and taking the help of Ministry of Steel to pursue that one, we can definitely bring the advantages that other countries have in the usage of steel. This is what I wanted to say, Mr. Hatkar.
Yes, that's quite right. Any questions from the audience? Shekhar. Which is a project which is closest to you?
Yeah. No. There's nothing like that. Every project is very close to our heart. And, you always learn something. And I continue to learn. I'm very happy to say that I'm very happy to be a student, because you see what is happening, and it's a great joy to work like that. And one thing in our office, especially with young engineers, we encourage them to think for themselves. I don't want a young engineer just to say yes to what I say. I want him to question. I'll tell him, I made mistakes. I still make mistakes. So until you understand what you're doing, don't do anything. Just come, you can come and ask me 5 times, 10 times. I'll still answer your question. Recently, one engineer, very good, excellent engineer, he used to ask me the same question, maybe after 10 days or 15 days. I said, now, is he trying to find out whether I'll give the same answer or not? It's good. It's very good. And I can tell you it's a great joy working like that. And in fact, that's the only reason I'm still working in this firm. Only reason. Only reason.
Very good. Very good. Something that I always wanted to ask Shirish or Dr. Nouri, how they managed to survive in this, difficult environment in India. What happens is in 65, I think he mentioned about 1965, I also know exactly what was happening in 1965. Structural engineers per se were not having much respect, and their fees were many times coming through the architect or through the contractor. And very often, even for their legitimate claims, they had to wait and make several requests. It was traditional that, structural engineers' fee was reduced to some lump sum amount. And jobs used to come from architects, and architects used to say, hey, I want to give you a new job tomorrow. Come, meet me. Now, that kind of an environment was terrible. And for me also, I come from abroad, and so also Vasu. I think this environment was not at all happy. And from that, in spite of that environment, we are very proud to see that Shirish Patel and Associates have maintained their high standards of ethics. And they have always seen that proper contracts are drawn up between them and the real client, and fees are paid as per contract. And there are no compromises there. And I'm sure many people must have said, sorry, then we cannot give this assignment to you. And you must have said, fair enough, go ahead, give it to someone else.
You know, first of all, I hold fellow consultants, civil engineers, responsible for the state of affairs. Because we quote low fees and we pay very low salaries. And other thing is that today, or even a few years back, if I have to see something, some nice structures which inspire me, you know, I have to look at old buildings, like, you know, VT or Bombay Central or whatever. So, and these young engineers, not only they have poor salaries, but they don't see anything to inspire. They see nothing. So naturally they follow the route, either they'll go into software. So many things are happening. They see some creativity in that. Or they go into business management, perhaps no creativity, but a lot of money. So we have lost a whole lot of generation of young engineers only because of our own doing. You know, that's where the problem lies. And today, okay, the salaries have improved, everything is improved, but that has not changed the situation because there is a gap of understanding, gap of what you must do, gap of how you must preserve the natural resources. And that is very, very important. We cannot afford to continuously keep on building and building without thinking of our natural resources. Thank you. I'm old and tend to talk. I think my wife is always signaling that I should stop talking now. Thank you.
So it's a sheer coincidence that today we have three most experienced structural engineers on stage. I have very rarely seen that such type of people are sitting on the dais and trying to explain their experience or trying to take us back a little bit in the history. But all three of you are real stalwarts when we talk about structural designing or structural engineering or fabrication or whatever it is. So from each one of you, at least a couple of lines to guide the next generation who aspire to come into this profession. And anybody can start.
I would say to young engineers, don't listen to your bosses. Think for yourself. Think for yourself and you'll never look back because you're all very creative. You know, the knowledge is God-given. It's nobody's property. You have every right to innovate and just don't care for anybody who stops you from innovation. That's my message to you, young people today.
Very good message. I think all of us will remember that. Only 2 lines from me. I think all structural engineers must take interest in all other disciplines also. They must learn about architecture, they must learn about MEP services, about landscaping, and everything that happens to the building subsequently, and not focus their attention only on their structural design, and then later on blame others that this plumber came and he did this, and this electrical contractor did this. We must insist at the right time to see that my structure is capable of withstanding or meeting the requirements of the future, whether it is internal planning, because requirements keep on changing in a building, and every generation has a different requirement. So when you construct a building, see if you can give that flexibility, see if you can advise the client correctly, and incorporate all the future requirements in the structural design itself, so that then you are able to convince the client that your structure may be marginally more expensive, but it is the most appropriate structure. And 9 times out of 10, the client agrees. This is my message. Thank you.
Thank you. From my side, I say that I think to be successful, you should be passionate, first of all, in doing everything. And more so, I feel, since I started my career as a structural engineer to a general management and heading the companies like that, I feel the engineers, first of all, should understand the functional aspects of the building. I see that many structural designers these days, other than working on the computer using the StatPro or whatever the analysis, etc., what result it gives, they talk about it, but not much about the functional aspects of the design. When you understand the functional aspects of the design, your capabilities to design to meet the customer's even latent needs, which are not explained, probably will be met with. So functional aspects of the design, whether it is due to ventilation or the daylighting or the so many aspects that are there in that. And another thing is, I think in India, we started giving a lot of thrust for the sustainability. I can say with the guarantee that at least in next 5 to 10 years, it will, if people are not thinking about the sustainability, then probably we as a manufacturers or the consulting community or the contractors will not be able to get the growth that is there. So sustainability is a buzzword. So we should all work towards as how to have the sustainable buildings as we go forward. Okay. This is what I wanted to speak about. Thank you.